Sorry. Right. Usual problem. You
didn't click the
I know.
microphone.
I'm sorry. This is like the third time in a row. I'm going to go outside and shoot myself.
No, don't say that. That's horrid.
Well, yes,
I thought you were going to say, go outside and have another coffee.
Well, all right, yeah.
I think that would be more appropriate, actually.
Better option.
What is wrong with you?
I don't know. Right, yeah, okay, so we're back.
Hi!
Oh dear, sorry, my fault.
You're not awake, are you, darling?
No.
Never mind. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's a beautiful day. Gorgeous and sunny and bright, and it's June and it's summer and it's just full of energy and light. Gorgeous. So what have we here? We have launched our brand new number 7 box kit magazine. Oh, it's finally here and it is full of summer. So this morning we have a special guest for you, our dear friend and fantastic journaler, YouTube sensation, Mike Deakin. But before we go over to Mike, a round of applause. But before we go over to Mike, I just want to very quickly, for the people who didn't catch us yesterday, you can catch up on YouTube and Facebook, what you get in your box kit. So this is what you get. You get a magazine full of goodies and step-by-steps and beautiful, beautiful samples by our fantastic design team. Thank you so much to our Indigo Blue Girls design team, the Practical Publishing design team, and of course Practical Publishing, who help put this magazine together. And you also get an A4 sheet of amazing, beautiful stamps. Look at these. So these you can use all year round, but they do have that summer feeling. Look at these background stamps. Whoops, that way round even. I love these background stamps. They are just gorgeous. They are acrylic, see-through, cling mounted. And then you also get... Yeah, I'm sorry, that's Duke. He's begging for biscuits. He thinks I'm talking to him. And then we have this fantastic, gorgeous little die. I love this. I use it like lace, actually. And it's a 2-piece, so that you can cut out just in the page, or you can actually cut out the whole piece. So that is gorgeous. You also get a 4-in-1 stencil. This is 6 by 6 inches, and I love using this. Check out my demonstrations that I did last night at the 6 p.m. show. And you also get some stickers. So I love these. These are really
very close.
Is it very close? Too close?
Yeah, that's good.
There we go. Okay. So you also get those, and I know this is full of samples, so it's not really quite as big as this, but you get this fantastic magazine with all the step-by-steps in here. Look at some of these samples I've got in here. So you get all the step-by-steps. There's product information, there's a fantastic competition, prizes to be won, loads and loads of stuff, absolutely jam-packed. Now the serious bit is these are limited edition, okay? So once they are gone, they are gone. We only have a certain number. That's why we chose to exclusively give them to you first. Our YouTube fans and our Facebook fans, thank you so much. So we thought we'd offer them to you first. So yes, when they're gone, they're gone. The price is $14.99, and how can we get hold of them?
So if you go onto our website, indigoblue.com, and go into the latest releases section, you'll see all of the products, including the magazine, that have been on the shows to date so far.
And also, we've just launched our brand new Dorothy stamps. Ta-da! So Dorothy and Friends, so you can see these demonstrations on YouTube and Facebook, and they are just
Can't see those
gorgeous.
yet because you haven't done them.
I'm coming to that. That's now you've sort of
Doesn't take much.
you throw me off kilter. Okay, they're in my my packet, but look at these, Dorothy and Friends, absolutely gorgeous. We've got our Brave Lion, we've got our Loving Tin Man, and we've got our brainy, clever Scarecrow. Little Dorothy, a couple of Totos there, some lovely, lovely words that are gorgeous. Check those out. And to go along with it, we have the poppy landscape. Remember, she goes through the poppy field, which is gorgeous, and we've got, of course, the yellow brick road as well. So we've got brand new stamps, we've got a lovely birdhouse as well. Oh, just check them all out. Anyway, let's get back to our special guest. So Mike Deakin, thank you so much for coming to demonstrate for us. He's a really good friend. He's a very, very talented.
Hello.
He is very talented, isn't he? Yes, very talented indeed. So's Dukey. Duke agrees, don't you? You agree that Mike is very talented, and he's a lovely chap as well. Yes. Check out his YouTube channel. He's very, very popular on there, and it's Mike Deakin Art. Okay.
Okay.
On to Mike. Thanks ever so much for joining us, and enjoy, Mike.
Hi everyone, it's Mike here. So I've got my Indigo Blue box kit number 7. So I thought I'd take some time today to sit and share with you a few ideas of what you can do with the contents of your kit. So I've spread out the contents of my box kit here on the table. So immediately I was drawn to this stamp set. We've got some beautiful and really good sized stamps in this set, which I'm sure you already know. But those texture stamps in the background, so you've got like a typewriter text stamp there, you've got this lovely kind of cross-hatched trellis kind of harlequin stamp there, and you've got this floral one with that lovely kind of Hessian burlapy kind of background to it. But they're ideal sizes for A6 cards. Perfect for making little cards. And as I do need to have a thank you card I need to send to somebody, I thought today it would be perfect, because we've got this lovely thank you sentiment here, to make a little thank you card today. So that's what I'm going to do. So that's the stamp set. There's also this lovely little floral kind of botanical die, and I've also got this great little mini stencil. As you can see, I've already been playing with mine, so it's a little bit grungy. And there's a few other little peel-off stickers, sentiment stickers included there, and obviously the backing papers, which I'm also going to use, particularly this lovely kind of creamy coloured one, which goes really well with craft card. And that's the base of the thank you card that I'm going to do today. So, first things first then, what I want to do is just grab my paper trimmer, and I'm just going to separate one of those papers, and I'm going for the cream coloured one, and I want to go for this kind of light coloured area here. So I'm going to cut that in half so that I've got two kind of A5 panels, so that's going to be useful for that. I also want a nice kind of background matte. So I think we're going to go for just that red, works beautifully with the craft card as well. So I think we'll have a section of that too. So let me just put that under my trimmer, pop those to one side, and then for that lighter colour, I think, let me cut a panel I think that should do for the front of my card base. So that's my first layer that I'm going to put on there. And I'm going to add another layer on top of that, which I think will be this lovely kind of cream colour. So it's all kind of grungy background. So we'll just take a quick cut of that. So we'll just take that down to about there. And then I've got a secondary panel. So what I've done is I've created a little reddish border that's going to go on the front of my card like so. So just a few little mats and layers. Okay, so what I need to do now is just to get those glued down. And for that I'm just going to use a little bit of spirit glue, just my preferred colour. There we go. I'm not having to put a huge amount of glue on this. And I like using the spirit glue because it gives you a little bit of wiggle room just to get your panel in the right place. So there we go. So that can now get stuck onto the front of that card. And of course, in this box kit, you get 2 of each of these papers, which is perfect because if you've got a favourite, or if there's one of the backs that you like that's got one of the fronts that you like, you've got, at least got 2. So you've got 2 bites of the cherry. So we'll now layer that down. Beautifully. Just like so. Right, what I want to do is I want to stamp onto that background. So using, I think I'm going to use this trellis stamp. Just carefully manoeuvre it off the sheet. Then I'm going to bring in my stamp platform. Alright, so it's currently set to rubber, so I just need to flip it over so that it's set to clear. And I can put my card front on there. Just hold that down. Just there. Then I can position my trellis actually, I think I'll do it right in the middle. Perfect for going right in the middle. And then we can add our stamp. Now what I'm going to use on this is some brown Stays On ink. And I think that's the ganache. And then I'm just going to just lightly kiss it down. Look at that, right in the centre. And that's it, I think. Have I got most of that off? A little bit just there. A bit more just in the centre. And I can keep just pushing down. Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. There's hardly any ink left on that stamp at all now, so that's cool. So now, when I take that off, we've got that great kind of grunginess at the bottom, and we've got that lovely kind of grunginess. I'm hoping it's not too bright on the camera. Cool, so we can put that to one side, and now we can start work on the other bit. So what I want is I also want to use this little birdie. So we can lift the little birdie off, and I'm going to use that remaining piece. Now that's the right way up. So we'll just into those corners. And then I can take my little bird stamp I'm going to twist it so that I get where that line is. I don't know if you see on the paper. Where that line on the texture changes from the lighter to the darker, that's where I'm going to position my stamp, so that I've got the lighter part of the bird, the bottom part of the bird, its breast, its belly, its underbelly if you like. Is going to be in that lighter section. So I'm just looking at the pattern on the stamp and on the paper and just seeing where I can position to best effect. And then straight down. And then just gently lift it off. I mean, look at that great impression that I've got. Just one impression, just one little flip down, and we've got such a cool, beautiful little birdie. I'll pop that back on the sheet. So what I want to do with that now is I want to cut that out. So first of all, I'll just cut it out really crudely. And then I'm going to go around, but I'm going to leave just a little bit of a border, because I'll never fussy cut around those little berries. So if you start off with just a tiny little border, go all the way around. There we go. So that is the little birdie. So I can now bring my bird back in. Because I've used the same paper, and it blends quite nicely, and the fact that I've left that little border, it kind of disappears onto that background because we've used the same colour paper. So that's cool. So what I also want to do is I'm also got to bring in now this really nice, I thought about using the hexagon. Actually I might, now that I've seen that, I might actually use this rose stamp. See, this is what happens. We sometimes do this on the hoof. We change our mind at the last minute. Let's just have a look. I've got the acetate there. So is that going to sit quite nicely? No, I think we'll stick with that little hexagon. So let's just put that other stamp set back. For now anyway. And then just while we've got that stamp set out, we might as well just pop the others away too. Neat and tidy like. There we go. Okay, so just like we did before, we've got the hexagon stamp, and we've got another piece of that beautiful cream paper, the clotted cream paper, I think Kate called it. So I'm going to just drop this really carefully onto there, just to hold it in position. And again, I'm looking at the shape of the stamp, and what I want to do is I want to try and get the lighter part of the stamp in that lighter area of the paper. Sorry, the floral part of the stamp in the lighter part of the paper. So I'm just going to manoeuvre it further down, which means that the upper part of it is going to be the darker. So I'm just looking at the pattern on the paper and trying to work out which is going to be the best position. Okay, so again we'll use the same ink, keep it consistent throughout. If you only ever stick to one or two different colours, the same project, then everything will tend to coordinate better. There we go. Great stuff. Okay, put that away. And again, I'm going to trim round the outside just leaving a tiny little border. We have a beautiful little pattern that we can stick, but what we can also do, and see how it just manages to kind of all blend and coordinate together without any problems at all. Right, so before we go any further, I want to add some colour just in these flowers, the berries, and a little bit of colour on the bird's tummy. And because we've used red in the background, I think it would be a really good idea just to add a little bit of red colour, just to kind of turn the bird into almost like a robin kind of type bird. You know what I mean. Okay, so I have a couple of coloured pencils. So these are Caran-d'Ache, Pablo Caran-d'Ache. So, and I'm just going to very, very gently just add that colour, just utilising where that white kind of grungy pattern was, just using that as my guide. And I'm not going really, really heavy. I just want kind of like that hint . And then on the berries, this is the sort of project where you can just sort of disappear into yourself, just clear your mind while you're working. So it just adds that little touch of colour. So again, on the flowers, I'm just going to add a little bit, a few strokes. Working from the middle outwards. Harder pressure and just kind of flicking. It's just kind of like little subtle additions of colour. And then with the green pencil, I don't think these have actually got, oh, these have got names. So this green is khaki green. Sometimes the pencils have numbers, and the red is scarlet. And if you're, there's a little star rating on them, so the green has got 3 stars and the scarlet's got 2, if that means anything to you. So I'm just adding a little bit of green colour just onto the leaves. again, just really gentle and subtle. So you can actually just tilt it whichever way you want. If you want it, the flower on the left hand side, you can have it there with the leaves coming off to the right, or twist it one more time and then now the flower is on the bottom right with the leaves climbing up the side. I kind of like it like that. Just like that. And I think that's the way we're going to do it. Alright, so let's bring my card front back in again, grab my glue, and then I can just add a little bit onto the back, just a small dab on that bit that's sticking out where the splodges are. And then I'm going to position it just about there because I want space for my little sentiment. Like that. I really don't think you can go wrong with little birdies. Birdies for every occasion. I can just twist that because I've got that bit of wiggle room. The glue will just rub away. So don't worry about getting any glue on the background. This is why I love using the spirit glue. I mean, look at that. It just blends seamlessly into that trellis pattern on the background. Okay, so it's this little thank you that I'm going to use in the stamp set. And I've got two pieces of the backing papers again. I've got the red that we used for the border there, which coordinates with the pencil, and I've got another piece of the cream. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a couple of mats and layers. I've still got that hexagon stamp on my stamp press. So we'll just drop this down onto the stamp press, just hold it in place. My stamp press is in desperate need of a good clean. And then I'm just going to position the stamp on there and just repeat that process that we did earlier. Doesn't really need anything else, does it? There we go. And now I'm just going to trim out. Thank you. And I'm not particularly bothered if I've not got a perfectly straight line. I think it just adds to that handmade feel. So now I'm just going to grab a little bit of glue. One thing I do want to make sure though is that there's the same amount of space either side. Yeah, that's more even. So grab the glue. flip it over, and I'm going to use, I think, a little bit of the mottle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just position it on the paper so that I've got an even kind of border on those two sides, like so. That way, when you come to cut it out, you've only got to do two. In fact, let me just trim that a bit more, so then I can come to it on that side. There we go. Then I can position my thank you just down there at the bottom. And there is the front of my card, just subtly coloured, just kind of two colours with a little hint of green. That's all it really is. I don't really think it needs anything else. And if I wanted to, I could stamp using one of those other sentiments on the inside. In fact, should we do that? Let's use that. You don't have to be perfect to be amazing. Let's use that on the inside of the card, directly on so give yourself a little space to write on. I think that's going to work. So let's just bring that stamp press back in again, get rid of the thank you stamp because we don't need that anymore. And what I like about using these stamp presses is that you can maneuver and position whatever you're stamping onto. You don't have to do it the right way up. It's like I'm doing it sideways here. So I think that's just about in the middle, isn't it? Straight down. There we go. You don't have to be perfect to be amazing. So there you go. All I have to do now is just team that up with an envelope. Of course, we could always stamp on the envelope too if we wanted, just to kind of make it coordinate a little bit more. So plain, simple, but sometimes, as we all know, less is more. In my 8x8 art journal, I think I'm going to create a little art journal page using some more of the resources from the Indigo Blue box kit number 7. So I'm kind of drawn to one of the papers, this grungy kind of yellowy ochre background, which I think is absolutely beautiful. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roughly just tear the sheet from the other set and then just kind of mark out whereabouts on the page it needs to go, just so I get the right sort of size. So about there. And then I'm not being precise, I'm not measuring anything today. So I'm going to grab my wiggly rulers, as Kay calls them. Ooh. I think we'll use the smaller decal. Okay, so let's just give that a bit of a tear. So around about there, and we need to come down a little bit further. About there. So I just need to remove a little bit from that side. So art journal pages, unlike card making, can be a bit more grungy, a bit more imperfect, and we kind of throw perfection out of the window when we're doing art journal pages because it's not really what we're interested in. Perfect. So what I need to do is using some indigo blue, slap it on matte medium. I'm just going to give that, there we go, give that a quick brush over. The art journal pages tend to be more free-flowing, a lot more less restrictive than card making. Card making I always find, because you're giving the card away, you tend to spend a bit more time trying to get things looking just so, whereas with an art journal page it don't really matter because you're not really giving it away, you're only doing it for yourself. It's not like you're going to be giving the art journal page to somebody. Okay, now the only reason I've done that on the back of the paper is because I don't want to get a huge amount of wrinkles in it. So if you also apply the matte medium to the back of the paper, you tend not to get them. So let's just give it a quick coat on top. So sometimes these papers, when they're printed, have a little bit of a coating on them, which restricts adding paint or any kind of waterproof or water-based medium on them. Adding a coat of gesso over the top, or matte medium or clear gesso, will just help you add to it later on. It gets rid of any shine, but also allows you to be able to maneuver paint over the surface of the page, and if there's any glossiness to it, it won't puddle, it won't bubble the other way it sometimes does when you do with a glossy paper. Let me just quickly dry that off. Okay, look at that. Because I added the matte medium on the back of the paper before sticking it down, no bubbles, no wrinkles. The only bubble I've got is a little bit of it looks like there's a dust particle or a little bit of fluff or something that got onto the page when I stuck it down. It's like on the wall when you get a little lump on your wall. But like I said, so there's virtually no shine left on that at all now. If you look at the shine on the paper there, and then look at the shine on the paper there, that's what your clear gesso or your matte medium will do. Okay, so next step then, I want to add some white gesso. What I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and just kind of create a bit more of a white grungy border around the outside of the page. Knock back that yellow ochre paper a little bit just to push it more into the background. So I'll go over the page. And as it dries, you'll see that the pattern still shows through, but it just knocks it back a little. You can see the brush strokes in it, which is cool. Okay, so a lot more free flowing for sure. Once the gesso is dry, because we use that matte medium over the top of the paper, if we take a wet wipe, a baby wipe, just rub gently, you can start, I'm going to start to remove some of that white gesso. Now you can do this before it's dry if you want to, but I like to dry it mainly because I always think that if you wait until it's dry and then just give it a gentle rub, it tends to give you the impression of old plaster, you know, like an old paint effect onto old plaster that you see in old buildings sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Well, I hope you do anyway. And because you've used that kind of mottly background, that colour is now showing up a little bit more. Just quickly dry that off. Now that's dry, I'm going to use one of the stamp sets, or one of the stamps from the set, which is going to be this trellis one, which I absolutely love. Love the fact that it's all kind of grungy and sketchy. Now I've just applied it to one of my Skinny Minis. Indigo blues are slightly larger. They're Thin Lizzies, I think they're called. Skinny Minis, Thin Lizzies. The previous ones to that were called Slim Jims. So I'm using a permanent solvent-based ink, which is Stays On Orange Zest. Because we've got that yellow underneath, I'm going to use the orange and just stamp down and I'm just going to twist it just to get a little bit more there. Second generation stamping, that's fine. There's enough on there just to kind of grab a little bit, maybe just a little bit more at the top there. Cool. Just add a little bit of grunge into that background. Just quickly give the stamp a quick clean. Don't like leaving solvent inks on photopolymer stamps, but it's just one of those things. It's just one of those things I don't like doing. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to take the text stamp, bring the stamp set back in again, which is this one at the bottom. So that looks like a block of text with like typewriter writing, but also there's a little bit of kind of sketchy handwriting on there as well. In fact, I'm not going to bother with the block on this one. So on this one, we're going to use a dark colour. Let's use that ganache that we used on the previous project. And I'm going to do this all loose. And then just have to make sure I get it the right way up, because it's going to look a bit silly otherwise, so I need to mark. Let's just get a bit of scrap paper. In fact, let's just use the back. Right, okay, so that's the top. So let's just add a bit more on now. So this is the top. And I'm just going to drop that over the top, push down once, peel it off. Over here, push down once, peel it off. Just like that. And I'm not going to do any more on that, but because that's solvent based, it's permanent, so once it's dry it ain't going to move if we put any other liquid over the top. Now that I'm happy that that's dry, if your stamping is a little bit too in the foreground, you can always knock it back again by adding a little bit more of that gesso, which I'm going to do now. So I'm just going to add some onto the worktop, and then I'm just going to go over the top again, just toning that colour, knocking it a little bit further into that background, and just helping it to blend some more. So no longer is it very prominent and in the foreground, but it becomes part of the background layer. And you can keep on doing this until you're happy with how far it's been pushed into the background. So a little bit around the edges, just to kind of knock that back a little bit. All becomes part of the background layer. Quick tidy up. We'll let that dry, and then I'll be back. The gesso is now dry. As you can see, my pages have started to curl just a little bit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use this stamp. So, which is now it sort of looks like a daffodil, but it isn't really a daffodil. I'm not really sure what it is, to be honest, and it's got these lovely kind of green leaves, but I like the burlap effect in the burlap effect in the background. God, I must be wearing somebody else's teeth today. So I think this will work well if we introduce some yellow there and some green to the page, because we've also got that yellow and kind of orangey background. So I've just stuck this down onto the back of one of my large stamp blocks, and I'm going to use that ganache ink again. Again, I'm using solvent based ink because I intend to use water based colours to add the colour to the stamp once it's dry. So we'll flip that over, and I only get one chance at this because I'm using this stamp press, not my big stamp press. So I'm just going to use my thumb, and I've actually stood up to put the pressure on this. So I'm just going to go all the way around, not putting a huge amount of pressure, just doing a little bit of CPR on it. If it doesn't stamp perfectly the first time, then because it's in an art journal page, you know, I'm not going to sweat it. So let's lift that up and see what we've got. That'll do. I'm happy with that. So as you can see, we've got a decent impression from that stamp. So I'm going to allow the solvent ink to dry. I'll probably help it along with the heat gun, and then I'll be right back. The ink has now dried, so what I'm able to do is I can, because we've used solvent based ink, is that we can introduce a water layer over the top of this now, and it won't mess up, it won't dissolve the image. So I've got some yellow ochre paint, which is pretty much what that's based on. The darker colour, if you look, see there, look, it's the yellow ochre. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just grab a little bit from the lid. I've got a little bit of water on my brush. Let's best that bubble. And I'm just going to put a tiny amount on the mat with the tiniest bit of water. Now, this yellow ochre paint is translucent, which means it won't cover completely anyway. It's not matte. So you're able to create a little bit of a colour wash. Now what I'm trying to do is just make it so that it's a nice kind of consistency for painting with. There we go. And we're going for subtle, not really in your face. So first layer, nice little wash, because although it's translucent, it is also acrylic, so once it's dry it's not going to move. So we can utilize the strokes of the brush to also give the paint a little bit of structure. So if you've ever seen paint marks in a painting where you can see the mark excuse me, you can see that the hand of the painter, you can sort of get that kind of effect with acrylic paint. Although sometimes it does dry flat, sometimes you can get that kind of painterly effect by using the brush strokes to give you texture. So we get a bit of paint on the brush and then just let the brush, when you drag it through, will give you that texture, the line. You see, once that first layer is dried, you can then come back in with the darker colour to add some shading. I'm hoping you can get the camera's picking up there, just there you can see the texture, the lines in the paint. And like I said, once you've done your initial base coat, you can come back and add the thicker paint to create that petal texture. Right, so a little bit more water because we've not done this top one yet. So that's going to create the base wash. Just with the water. And then by the time you've come back in, just blended out some of those bits from earlier, you should be ready to start adding your texture. Turn that round and then bring those brush strokes in. Lovely stuff. Oh, we've missed one. There's also one facing down just here. So let's grab some of that paint to create the wash. Not quite thick enough. There we go. In fact, I think there's a couple there. And then we'll just need to give that a quick dry. And then we can come back in with those thicker brush strokes. There we go. I'm happy with that. So I can put the yellow away, quick tidy up, get that yellow dried off, and then we're back in with the green. Yes, there was a little bit of an accident with my green paint. It spilled out. So the yellow has dried nicely. You may have also noticed I've got a cup. All this talking, give me a dry throat. So I'm going to do the same thing with the green. Just a teeny amount of water. So this is the Terra Vert. It's one of the new colours. So we can quickly just whip round. There we go. Just a teeny about a bit of water. You really don't need a huge amount with these paints because they're so pigment rich. A little goes a very long way. There we go. And like I said, because this is translucent paint, you can still see the stamping underneath. And if you've put a little bit too much colour on, providing it's still wet and hasn't dried, you can just go back in and just remove it. Let's do some of the stems. And because you're painting, you're allowed to be painterly, which means you can get away with going over the lines a little bit. There we go. Lovely. So that's the green. Told you didn't need a lot of paint. So quickly, again, dry it so we can add another layer. Okay. So final kind of layer for colour, I've pulled out the Tiger Lily, which is a beautiful kind of orange colour. Yum yum. And again, just grab the brush, a little bit of water, and again this is ultra transparent or translucent. So what you can do is just come in just to add a little bit of that colour around the centres where you think it's going to be darkest. I mean, you don't have to go for hyperrealism. The stamp itself isn't hyperreal, so you don't have to paint it as though it is. So I always try and do the undersides, if I can, just a little bit darker, just to give you that little bit more sense of depth. Of course, you can do whatever colour. You could do these pink, red, sky blue, purple with polka dots, if that's your thing. And I think I'm pretty happy with that. And like I said, I used very, very little colour, almost none. Everything's now dry. I'll just hold it up to the camera so you can see a little bit closer. I'm not going to paint the centre of the flowers, I'm going to leave them white because I want that to tie in to the whiteness of the background. But one of the things I do like to do on these kind of art journal pages is just to kind of add a little bit of texture into these areas here, and to do that I'm going to use a brown coloured paint. This is called Leather Corset. I've just given it a shake up because I haven't used this in quite some time, and I'm going to take a little bit just from the lid and I'm going to make it rather watery, and I've kind of cut a piece of paper, or ripped a piece of paper just big enough to kind of act as a cover, as a mask. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some texture splatters just into that background. That'll do. There we go. And then just a quick tidy up. So that leather corset is a reddish brown, so will tie in quite nicely with the oranges and the warm tones of the orange and yellow that we've painted the daffodil in. So just quickly dry that off because I don't want to smudge it. Those splatters are now dry, so that's going to be it now for that kind of layer. So the final layers that I want to add to this, or can add to this, they can be then water soluble. So I've got the stencil that came with the kit, and I really like this kind of effect with the bubbles, kind of grungy. So I'm going to bring some distress ink in. So I've got peel paint, which is a kind of greeny colour. Well, it is a greeny colour, it's not a kind of greeny colour. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit of that stenciling just around the edge down here, and I'm just going really, really carefully and lightly just to add a little bit more detail into that project. So again, up here, in fact I could theoretically swap the stencil around, but I'm just going to go lightly. And then just a tiny bit down here towards the bottom. There we go. Just to kind of add a little bit more texture into that background. And because it's water based, we can just go back in with a wet wipe and just dab and just take off that top surface just so that it's subtle and will blend a bit more into the background. Just adds a bit of warmth to it. Okay, so again, we just need to quickly dry off. Just to finish off, I'm going to use one of these lovely kind of little sentiments that you also get with the set. I think I like this one that says happiness blooms from within, but we might have to cut. Yeah, let's have a peel, see what happens. So let's cut that at a little bit of an angle because we can. We'll just take off the edge there just so that it kind of mirrors. So add that there, and then we can take off the blooms and we can put that there. And then we can split these. Again, we can just cut them at a slight angle, and then we can add that within, down there, and then the from, we can just do the same thing, just snip and add that there. And then just to finish off, because we've got black in the stamp, or dark colours in the stamp, and also with the splatters, we've also got black in the writing, then it's not outside your kind of colour, just to make these pop on your art journal page. And then also, if you wanted to, you could go around the outside, just adding in a little bit of a doodle border, which I think we'll also do. Just to add that kind of little frame effect just around the outside of the page. And it's just a random doodle. It's a scribbly doodle, so you can get away with quite a lot. Like I said, you don't have to be perfect. There you go. So there you go, is my art journal page using the stamps and some of the papers and the stickers and a stencil from the new number 7 box kit from Indigo Blue.
Brilliant, brilliant, Mike. Really enjoyed that.
Well done. Thank
Absolutely
you.
gorgeous. So check out his YouTube channel, Mike Deakin Art. It's full of fantastic, inspiring stuff. So join us back at 1 o'clock because I've got some brand new samples to share with you from our design team that are just going to really inspire you to have a go with your box kit. So don't miss us at 1 o'clock for our final, last one of our box kit Facebook launch.